The Roman Empire is one of the most expansive empires in history, but they also claim to produce an immense cheese weighing 1,000 pounds. Could this be true, or is it just a case of Roman bragging? Hey there, cheese historians! I'm Julia, and this is Cheese History, a channel all about the origins, history, and impact of cheese. This is the second part in a series looking at Roman cheese. Now, in the first episode, I looked at how the Romans made cheese. If you haven't already, do check that one out so that this video makes more sense. In this episode, I will cover what Roman cheese was like and where it was made. Then in the final 2 episodes in this series, I'll cover how cheese was used in cooking and to treat a whole raft of illnesses, because they really did do that. So if you don't want to miss out on more information than you ever thought you would need about Roman cheese, then make sure you subscribe. Very early in their history, during the 2nd millennium BC, the people of the Italian peninsula were making very simple cheeses, which is similar to ricotta. They would heat acidic milk until it was close to boiling to coagulate it into a simple fresh cheese. They even had specially designed pottery vessels to heat the milk without it frothing up and boiling over. As the centuries passed, these ricotta types of cheeses appeared to steadily fall out of favour, and replaced with harder cheeses that required cheese graters in many parts of Italy. Graters were being used to grate hard cheeses by the Hittites and the Greeks at around about the same time, and both of these cultures I've covered in previous episodes on this channel. This shift from simple, soft, fresh cheese to hard grated cheese appears before Rome establishes itself as a leading power in the Mediterranean, and forms one of the largest empires in history. Rome began to spread out and conquer territory long before it made the shift from republic to empire. Its spread impacted the cheese the people of Rome had access to. For example, Rome captured Sicily in the First Punic War. Now, Sicilian cheese was highly prized by the Greeks, and by taking over the island, Rome suddenly had control of the Sicilian cheese trade. The Roman army drew rations of cheese, alongside things like bacon and wine. I mentioned in the first part in this series that Roman-era cheese molds have been found around army barracks. Now, cheesemonger Ned Palmer suggests that the Roman army in Britain must have been producing huge quantities of cheese. The 1st century historian Livy says that the cheese ration for a legionary was 1 ounce, 28 grams per day. For a legion at its full strength of 5,000 men, that's 140 kilos of cheese a day. But then, of course, they'd only be making cheese in the spring and summer, when the animals were giving milk. So to tide the army over the autumn and winter, you'd need to make something like 100 cheeses a day. That is some large-scale cheese-making right there. This sort of scale cheese-making would have happened everywhere a Roman legion was stationed. As the Romans conquered more territory, they built roads so they could access the different parts of their empire with ease. Now, these Roman roads are famously straight, and so well built that they lasted for centuries after the empire had ceased to exist. Cheese would have been among the many things traded along these roads. Cheese would also have been traded on ships around the Mediterranean, particularly after the Romans had control of pretty much the whole coast of the Med. Roman geographer Strabo lived during the transition from republic to empire. He travelled throughout the Roman world during his lifetime, and wrote about what that world was like in Geographica, or geography. He includes details on the types of cheeses that were made by different people conquered by the Romans. The Romans would have had access to these cheeses through trade. An example is that the people of Gades, or Cadiz, in Spain, were making cheese from cow's milk, and appear to have been making some kind of washed curd cheese. Strabo writes that, "For the milk of the cattle which feed there does not yield any whey, and they are obliged to mix it with large quantities of water when they make cheese on account of its richness. Adding water dilutes whey and makes a milder, smoother cheese. This is what's called a washed curd cheese." Gouda and Havarti are modern examples of washed curd cheeses. About 1/3 of the whey is removed and is replaced with water during cheesemaking. and this could well be what Strabo is describing. Another group, the Scythians, were a nomadic people who lived across Europe and Asia. Particularly those who lived in Turkey and Persia made cheese from mare's milk. Yes, that's a female horse. Using mare's milk is not a common choice for cheese making today. I think this is mainly because over the course of history, horses have been used as beasts of burden rather than for milk production. Horses haven't been bred to produce large quantities of milk, unlike cows, sheep, and goats. From Strabo's perspective, horses are vital to the Scythians as they live upon the flesh of horses and other animals, on cheese of mare's milk, milk, and sour milk. The latter, prepared in a particular manner, is a delicacy. And with that tantalizing detail about the sour milk of the Scythians, Strabo moves on to discuss their warlike nature, leaving me to wonder what it was about the sour milk of the Scythians that made it a delicacy. Doesn't he realise that it's really important to include these sort of details so that I can talk about them 2,000 years later? Pliny the Elder claims that cheese made from horse's milk is particularly good for appeasing hunger and thirst. He doesn't say where this horse's milk cheese comes from, but his comment could suggest that the Scythians were trading with the Romans. Pliny discusses a whole heap of different types of cheese in his Natural History. The kinds of cheese that are most esteemed at Rome, where the various good things of all nations are to be judged of by comparison, are those which come from the provinces of Nemausus, and more especially the villages there of Lusura and Gabalus. But its excellence is only very short-lived, and it must be eaten while it is fresh. Nemausus is Nimes, Lusura is Lozère, and Gabalus is Gévaudan, and all of these places are in the Occitanie region in southwest France. These areas are producing young cheeses that have to be eaten soon after they arrive in Rome. The pastures of the Alps recommend themselves by two sorts of cheese. The Dalmatic Alps send us the Diocletian cheese, and the Centronian Alps the Vatusican. The Diocletian cheese is a bit of a mystery, but the Centronian Alps are identified as the Savoie region in France. Vatusican cheese is sometimes identified as Beaufort, but it's hard to say for sure without further information. The kinds produced in the Apennines are more numerous. From Liguria, we have the cheese of Seba, which is mostly made from the milk of sheep. From Umbria, we have that of Aecina, and from the frontiers of Etruria and Liguria, those of Luna, remarkable for their vast size, a single cheese weighing as much as 1,000 pounds. These are Italian cheeses, at least some of which are made from cheese milk. Pliny claims that the cheese called Luna was huge, weighing 1,000 pounds. A Roman pound is smaller than a standard pound weight today, so this would be about 722 pounds or 329 kilos. As a comparison, Parmigiano Reggiano, or Parmesan, is one of the largest wheels of cheese made today, at about 84 pounds or 38 kilos when it's fully aged, and each wheel uses about 550 litres of milk. So I think Pliny is exaggerating just a little bit about the size of the Luna cheese. Either that or he has no idea what a pound is. While Luna is perhaps not as big as Pliny claims, it could still be a big cheese. There are two methods they could be using to make such a cheese. Either the Luna cheesemakers would have been cooking their curds by heating them slowly, so they expel more whey and create a drier cheese, or they could lightly press the curds before breaking them into smaller pieces and add a lot of salt. The curds are then repressed to form a wheel of cheese. Adding salt in this manner causes a lot of whey to be released, also resulting in a drier curd and the ability to make a larger cheese. This shows the real importance of being able to press cheeses with quite a lot of weight. The use of a press in cheese making, which is basically to apply weight to a cheese, helps it expel more whey than you can get by just letting the curds sit and be pressed under their own weight. That's kind of a way of allowing the whey to drain naturally. But if you put weight on it, you can expel more whey and also get the curds to knit together much more closely and get a much denser cheese than you could if you didn't apply weight. So the use of presses by the Romans to make cheese is quite an important development in cheese making, and one I probably should have mentioned in the previous episode. Nearer the city again, we have the cheese of Vestinum, the best of this kind being that which comes from the territory of Seditium. Goats also produce a cheese which has been of late held in the highest esteem, its flavour being heightened by smoking it. The cheese of this kind, which is made at Rome, is considered preferable to any other, for that which is made in Gaul has a strong taste, like that of medicine. Cheeses closer to Rome appear to be made from goat's milk and are smoked to improve the flavour. It seems that Pliny can't miss an opportunity to put down the Gauls, whose cheese is not to his taste. Likening Gaulish cheese to medicine is an interesting comment, as Pliny does go on in natural history to describe all the different ailments that can be cured with cheese and milk. I will come back to this in a later episode. Having described the cheeses around Rome, Pliny once more goes further afield. Of the cheeses that are made beyond the sea, that of Bithynia is usually considered the first in quality. That salt exists in pasture lands is pretty evident, from the fact that all cheese as it grows old contracts a saltish flavour. Bithynia is in northern Turkey, and their cheese from Salona is briefly mentioned by Strabo as being made from cow's milk. This cheese appears to be an aged cheese that is quite salty. Salt is important in milk and cheese production. Superior cheese can be made by feeding salt to the animals that are then milked to make the cheese. And not only this, but sheep even, cattle and beasts of burden are induced to graze all the better by giving them salt, it having the effect also of considerably augmenting the milk and imparting a superior flavour to the cheese. Salt is regularly added to the feed of cows and sheep today too, so Pliny is indeed onto something here. The Romans in Rome had access to cheese from all over the empire, and it came in all manner of different shapes and sizes. They took over areas like Sicily that already had a history of making high-quality cheeses. They also looked down on the cheese-making capabilities of people like the Gauls. The range of cheeses available to the Romans is probably the most diverse of any period up to this point in history, because cheese-making has developed to produce many different types of cheese, and because the Romans have control over a huge area of Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East. At the very least, there are fresh cheeses, aged cheeses, small and huge cheeses, smoked cheese, and cheese made from the milk of horses, cows, sheep, and goats. That is a huge variety, considering we're talking 2,000 years ago. That was an overview of what some of the Roman cheeses were like, and where in the vast Roman Empire they were made. This raises the question of how the Romans used cheese in cooking, and how they ate it. Now that is the topic that we're going to be looking at in the next episode. So, if you don't want to miss out on that, please subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments which Roman cheeses you think sound the most interesting. I'll see you next time, cheese historians.